Phineas Gage was born in 1823 to a family of farmers and was raised on a farm in Grafton County, New Hampshire. By 1848, he was known as a perfectly healthy, strong and active 25-year-old man. He was described as being iron-willed, mentally endurant and very energetic and persistent. In September of 1848, he had been employed for construction of a railroad near the village of Cavendish, Vermont. He was hired to be the main blasting foreman, and the job of the team directed by him was to blast openings for the railroad in the rocky hills south of the village. And the way they would do this is they would drill a hole 3 by 3 inches, 6 feet deep into a hill that needed an opening, and fill it with a layer of gunpowder and then sand and clay on top, so that the blast would be directed into the surrounding rock. Both layers of gunpowder and sand would also need to be compacted, and Gage had a special device made for him for this specific purpose. It was a tamping rod made out of steel, 1 1/4 inches in diameter, 3 feet and 7 inches long, and weighing 13 pounds with an 11-inch long point, which was the part where he would actually be holding it. So, on September 13th, 1848, at around 4:30 p.m., the hole was drilled and the workers dumped the first layer of gunpowder in it, which had to be compacted before the second layer of sand would fully fill the hole. Gage walked up to it and started casually compacting the gunpowder with a steel rod, while occasionally being distracted and looking back over his shoulder to keep the conversation going with the man behind him. And during one of these moments, when he was distracted, the steel rod hit the rock on the side of the hole, creating a spark that instantly set off the explosion, launching the 13-pound steel spear-like rod right into the roof of his mouth, piercing behind the left eye through the left side of the brain, and escaping clean through the top of his skull, before landing a whopping 80 feet away, smeared with blood and brain. Gage landed on his back and instantly went into convulsions. But, by some miracle, in a few minutes he got up, walked with little assistance to an ox cart, and even spoke. About 30 minutes after the accident, Gage was in town, sitting outside of a hotel where the physician Edward H. Williams was residing. And when he walked out, he instantly started examining the wound. While this was happening, Gage was just casually explaining to bystanders how this had happened to him. At some point during the examination, Gage stood up and vomited blood, since he was constantly swallowing it. And in the process, about half a teacup of his brain got pressed out of the hole at the top of his skull, falling on the floor. After this, he was walked to physician John Harlow's house, who knew Gage even before the accident. With Williams' assistance, Harlow shaved the scalp around the tamping iron's exit area, and removed some coagulated blood and an ounce or more of protruding brain. His clothes and the bed he was lying in were completely drenched in blood. They also dressed Gage's hands and forearms, which were deeply burned from the explosion, along with his face. Despite all of this, Gage insisted that he shall be back at work in a few days. The next morning, he was still conscious and recognized his mother and uncle, who came to see him after being notified of the accident. On the third day, however, he became delirious and was slipping in and out of consciousness. Fast forward to a month after the accident, with the medical help from John Harlow, Gage was walking up and down the stairs in the house, and sometimes even was able to walk outside. 2 months after the accident, on November 25, 1848, he was strong enough to return to his parents' home in New Hampshire. In February of 1849, 5 months after the accident, he was able to do a little work about the horses and barn, like feeding the cattle. 1 year after the accident, he was able to hold down a job at a horse stable service in Hanover, New Hampshire. Soon after, he received an invitation to work as a stagecoach driver in Chile, where he successfully worked for 7 years. Until in 1859, his health started to fail. At this point, he returned to his mother, who now lived in San Francisco. In February 1860, he began having epileptic seizures, which were gradually increasing in severity. On May 21, 1860, that's 11 years and 8 months since the accident, late into the night he had a severe 30-minute long convulsion, which was fatal. Historically, published accounts of Gage, including scientific ones, have almost always severely exaggerated and distorted his behavioral changes, usually contradicting the known facts. Only a handful of sources give direct information on what Gage was like, either before or after the accident. Based on the accounts of his mother and Dr. Harlow, after the accident, he suffered a slight memory loss, and mentally, he became more childish, using a lot more profanity in his speech, and creating impulsive plans and abandoning them after a short while. However, these mental changes may have been temporary, as in 1860, an American physician who worked with Gage in Chile described him as being polite and well-behaved, and having no impairment of the mental faculties whatsoever. After Gage's death, his skull was eventually put up in the Warren Anatomical Museum as an exhibit, along with the tamping iron that had pierced it.